Winter. A season of stark beauty, of crisp air and silent landscapes. A time when nature slumbers blanketed in white, but beneath the serenity, a different kind of chill takes hold. A chill that seeps into your bones, a harbinger of unease. This is the season when shadows lengthen and whispers dance on the wind. A season I've come to regard with a mixture of awe and trepidation. For winter, you see, holds a different kind of magic. It's a time when the veil between our world and the next grows thin. A time when the whispers turn into screams, and the shadows take on a life of their own. I've witnessed it firsthand. The chilling encounters, the brushes with the unknown, etched forever in my memory. They began subtly, like the first snowflakes of a storm, a flicker in the corner of my eye, a sound in the dead of night. Easily dismissed, explained away, but as the snow fell and the world outside grew quiet, so too did the encounters intensify. These are the stories of those encounters, tales spun from the icy breath of winter, whispered warnings from the heart of the storm, stories that will chill you to your core and leave you questioning the very nature of reality. It started innocently enough, a weekend getaway to a secluded cabin nestled deep in the woods, a chance to escape the city's clamor, to reconnect with nature's tranquility. The air was crisp, the silence profound, broken only by the crunch of my boots on the freshly fallen snow. As dusk painted the sky in hues of purple and orange, a palpable shift occurred. The air grew heavy, the silence now oppressive. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, watching, waiting. Unease prickled at the back of my neck, an unwelcome guess settling in my gut. I retreated inside, the warmth of the crackling fire a welcome contrast to the growing chill outside. But the feeling of being watched persisted, growing stronger with each passing hour. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, whispers seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Sleep offered no escape. My dreams were plagued with unsettling images, flashes of movement in the woods, a pair of eyes glinting in the darkness, a voice whispering my name on the wind. Each time I woke with a start, my heart pounding against my ribs, the feeling of dread clinging to me like a shroud. Days turned into nights, each one a chilling echo of the last. The feeling of unease morphed into something more profound, a primal fear that gnawed at my sanity. The whispers grew louder, the shadows more defined. I was no longer alone in the cabin, I could feel it. One particularly harrowing night, as a blizzard raged outside, I saw it. A figure standing at the edge of the woods, shrouded in shadow, its eyes burning with an eerie light. It was there for a fleeting moment, then gone, swallowed by the swirling snow. Panic welled up inside me, threatening to consume me. I was trapped, isolated at the mercy of something I couldn't comprehend. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. Was I losing my mind, or was something truly sinister lurking just beyond the veil of the storm? The encounter at the window was just the beginning. What followed was a series of terrifying events that pushed me to the brink of madness, events that revealed a darkness far greater than I could have ever imagined. The following winter I found myself drawn back to the wilderness, a yearning for solitude, a morbid curiosity. Whatever the reason, I rented a small cabin, even more remote than the last. This one, the owner informed me with a knowing smile, was once used by fur trappers, men who braved the elements and whatever else the wilderness threw at them. The air hung heavy inside, thick with the scent of wood smoke and something musky, ancient. The logs that formed the walls were dark, almost black in places, as if stained by the years. Despite the fire crackling merrily in the hearth, a chill permeated the air, settling deep in my bones. Nightfall brought with it a new wave of unease. The wind howled outside, a mournful cry that seemed to echo my own growing anxiety. I tried to distract myself, reading by the light of the kerosene lamp, but the silence pressed in, broken only by the occasional groan of the timbers. It was then, in the flickering shadows cast by the firelight, that I first noticed it. A faint sound barely audible above the wind, a scratching as if something were dragging itself across the roof. I tried to dismiss it, an animal perhaps, seeking shelter from the cold, but the sound persisted, growing louder, more insistent. It moved now, circling the cabin, a slow, deliberate rasp that set my teeth on edge. Driven by a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity, I approached the window. The wind had picked up, whipping the snow into a frenzy, obscuring the woods beyond. I could see nothing but the swirling white chaos. And then I saw it. A flicker of movement in the trees, a brief glimmer of light like ice reflecting the moon, but there was no moon tonight, only the storm clouds racing across the sky. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, leaving me questioning my sanity. I stood there for what felt like hours, watching, waiting. The scratching on the roof had stopped, but the feeling of being watched intensified. The hair on the back of my neck prickled with a primal fear that sent shivers down my spine. The night stretched on, an eternity of shadows and whispers. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind that rattled the windows, sent my heart racing. I was a prisoner in my own fear, trapped in that isolated cabin with something unknown and deeply unsettling. Dawn broke, pale and anemic, casting a sickly light on the snow-covered landscape. The storm had passed, leaving behind a pristine white blanket that stretched as far as the eye could see. I forced myself to step outside, needing to breathe in the fresh air to convince myself that the horrors of the night had been nothing more than a figment of my overactive imagination. But as I stepped onto the porch, my blood ran cold. There, in the fresh snow, was a set of footprints. Not human footprints. No, these were far too large, too widely spaced. They led from the edge of the woods, stopping just short of the cabin steps. It was as if whatever had made them had simply vanished into thin air. A wave of nausea washed over me. I had been right. Something had been out there in the darkness, watching me. Something large, powerful, and utterly unknown. The footprints were a chilling reminder that I was not alone in this wilderness. The day passed in a blur of anxiety and dread. I tried to rationalize the footprints, to tell myself it was a bear, a moose, anything but what my gut told me was the truth. But the image of those massive tracks, imprinted in the pristine snow, was seared into my mind. As dusk approached, a familiar sense of dread washed over me. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I was not safe. The entity, whatever it was, would return. Barricading myself inside the cabin, I piled logs on the fire, desperately seeking solace in the warmth and light. The wind howled outside, a mournful symphony that seemed to herald the approaching darkness. Then, I heard it again. The scratching sound, this time louder, more insistent. It was coming from the roof, directly above my head. Terror gripped me, paralyzing me with fear. And then, as I watched in horror, a face appeared in the window. A grotesque, inhuman face, with eyes that burned like hot coals, peering through the frosted glass. It was there for a fleeting moment, a horrifying glimpse into a nightmare realm, then gone. I stumbled back, tripping over the rug, my heart pounding in my chest. The scratching on the roof intensified, accompanied now by a low, guttural growl that seemed to shake the very foundation of the cabin. Something was trying to get in. The following year, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that clung to me like a shroud. The encounters at the hunter's cabin had left an indelible mark, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of reality. I tried to outrun the fear, to bury myself in the mundane routines of everyday life, but it was no use. The icy grip of winter had seeped into my soul, and I knew, with a chilling certainty, that it wasn't finished with me yet. So I found myself drawn back to the wilderness, as if compelled by an unseen force. This time it was a small, isolated village nestled on the shores of a vast frozen lake that beckoned me. The villagers, hardened by generations of harsh winters, spoke in hushed tones of the lake's dark history, of strange lights seen dancing on the ice, of whispers carried on the wind that seemed to emanate from the frozen depths. I dismissed their tales as folklore, the product of long, dark nights and overactive imaginations. But even as I scoffed, a part of me couldn't help but feel a shiver of unease. The lake, shrouded in silence and shrouded in mist, held an undeniable air of mystery, a sense of something ancient and unknowable lurking beneath its frozen surface. I spent my days exploring the surrounding woods, seeking solace in the stark beauty of the winter landscape. But as the sun began its descent, casting long, eerie shadows across the snow, a sense of unease would settle over me, a primal fear that whispered of unseen eyes watching my every move. One evening, as the sky turned a bruised purple, I found myself drawn to the lake. The air was bitterly cold, the silence broken only by the crunch of my boots on the snow. I stood at the edge of the ice, mesmerized by the sheer vastness of the frozen expanse, the way it stretched out before me, a blank canvas reflecting the dying light. As I gazed out across the ice, I noticed something strange. Faint whispers seemed to be carried on the wind, whispers that seemed to emanate from the lake itself. At first I thought it was my imagination playing tricks on me in the fading light, but as I listened more intently, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They were soft, high-pitched, and filled with an unnerving sense of urgency, as if trying to warn me of something. I tried to rationalize the sounds, telling myself it was the wind whistling through the trees, or the ice cracking and groaning beneath the surface. But deep down, a primal fear was beginning to stir within me. The lake, once a place of serene beauty, was now transformed into something sinister, something that held a dark and unsettling power. As darkness descended, I turned to leave, my breath catching in my throat as I noticed a set of footprints leading out onto the ice. They were small, delicate footprints, like those of a child. But what child would be wandering out onto the frozen lake in the dead of winter, especially with those strange whispers filling the air? A sudden blizzard swept across the lake, engulfing me in a swirling whiteout. The wind howled like a banshee, whipping the snow into a frenzy that stung my face and obscured my vision. Disoriented and blinded by the snow, I stumbled blindly, desperate to find my way back to the safety of the village. Through the swirling snow, I thought I saw a figure standing some distance away. It was tall and slender, almost skeletal in its thinness, its outline blurred and indistinct in the blinding white. It seemed to glide rather than walk across the ice, its movements fluid and effortless, as if it were one with the storm itself. Terror gripped me, icy and absolute. The whispers on the wind seemed to intensify, swirling around me like a chorus of tormented souls. I stumbled backward, desperate to escape, but the figure continued to approach, its movements relentless, inexorable. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, swallowed by the blizzard. The wind died down, the snow stopped falling, and I was left standing alone on the ice, the silence deafening in the aftermath of the storm. I stood there for a long time, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my heart pounding against my ribs. Had I imagined the figure? Had the storm played tricks on my mind? Or was there something truly sinister lurking out there in the frozen wasteland? As I made my way back to the shore, my boots crunching on the newly fallen snow, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The hair on the back of my neck prickled with a primal fear that sent shivers down my spine. I could hear the whispers again, faint but unmistakable, carried on the wind. They seemed to be all around me, closing in, and then I felt it. A tremor beneath my feet. At first it was just a subtle vibration, but it grew quickly in intensity, until the ice was groaning and cracking beneath my weight. I looked up to see a massive crack spiderwebbing its way across the frozen surface of the lake, spreading rapidly towards me. Panic surged through me. I turned and ran, my feet slipping and sliding on the treacherous surface. The ice groaned and buckled beneath me, the crack widening with every step I took. I could hear the whispers louder than ever now, urging me onward, their tone laced with a chilling amusement. I risked a glance back over my shoulder to see the edge of the ice collapsing into the dark water, the crack now a gaping chasm that stretched as far as the eye could see. I was running out of time. The ice groaned beneath me, a deep, guttural sound that echoed through the vast emptiness of the frozen lake. The crack was widening, a hungry maw threatening to swallow me whole. I could feel the frigid air on my face, smell the metallic tang of the freezing water. Death, icy and absolute, beckoned. With a surge of adrenaline, I leaped across the widening gap, landing hard on the other side. The ice shuddered beneath my weight, but held. For now. I didn't waste time looking back. I knew the entity, whatever it was, would be watching, amused by my terror. Driven by a primal need to survive, I stumbled towards the distant shore, each step a victory against the relentless cold and the gnawing fear that clawed at my sanity. The village seemed a lifetime away, the lights from the few scattered houses mere pinpricks in the gathering darkness. As the blizzard intensified, I realized the futility of my situation. The storm had turned the landscape into a featureless white hell, all sense of direction lost in the swirling snow. Hypothermia was setting in, my limbs growing heavy, my thoughts sluggish. It was then that I saw it, a faint light flickering in the distance like a beacon of hope in the white void. A cabin, half buried in the snow, its windows glowing with an inviting warmth. Hope, however fleeting, surged through me. I pushed forward, fueled by the promise of shelter, of warmth, of a brief respite from the relentless fury of the storm. The wind howled around me, a symphony of despair, but I pressed on, my gaze fixed on that distant light. The cabin door creaked open as I stumbled onto the porch, revealing a small, sparsely furnished room. A fire roared in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn log walls. A wave of exhaustion washed over me as the warmth from the fire seeped into my frozen bones. I collapsed onto the wooden floor, too weary to do anything but stare into the flames. Time lost all meaning as I drifted in and out of consciousness. The storm raged outside, but inside the cabin, there was only the crackle of the fire and a strange sense of peace. I was safe, for now, sheltered from the elements and the entity that haunted the frozen wasteland. As the fire died down, I forced myself to my feet, my body aching with cold and exhaustion. I needed to find more firewood, to keep the flames alive, to hold the darkness at bay. But as I reached for my backpack, I noticed something strange. Footprints. They weren't my own. These were far too small, too delicate, like the ones I'd seen on the frozen lake. They led from the fireplace across the wooden floor and stopped abruptly at the wall. A shiver ran down my spine. I was not alone. The storm outside seemed to intensify, the wind howling like a chorus of tormented souls. The cabin walls creaked and groaned under the onslaught, as if something were trying to force its way in. The whispers started again, soft at first, then growing louder, more insistent. They seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, swirling around me, taunting me. Fear, primal and consuming, gripped me. I huddled by the dying embers of the fire, my back against the wall, my eyes wide, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The whispers grew louder, morphing into a cacophony of voices, some high-pitched and childlike, others deep and guttural, all filled with an unnerving sense of malice. I tried to convince myself it was the wind playing tricks on my mind, but deep down, I knew the truth. The entity that haunted the frozen lake, the one that had chased me across the ice, was here, inside the cabin with me, and it wasn't alone. As the last embers of the fire flickered and died, plunging the cabin into darkness, I heard a scratching sound at the wall opposite me. slow at first, then more insistent, as if something were trying to claw its way through. I squeezed my eyes shut, my heart pounding against my ribs, bracing myself for the inevitable. The scratching stopped. I held my breath, listening intently, every nerve ending on high alert. A long moment passed, an eternity of silence punctuated only by the pounding of my own heart. Then, a soft, high-pitched voice, barely audible above the howling wind, whispered through the wall. "Let us in." My eyes snapped open, but the cabin was pitch black. The voice was closer now, right on the other side of the wall, as if the speaker were pressed against the wood. Terror, icy and absolute, flowed through me, paralyzing me with fear. "We're so cold," another voice whispered, this one deeper, filled with an ancient sorrow that chilled me to the bone. "We just want to be warm." I stumbled back, my hand scrabbling for the doorknob. I had to get out to escape this nightmare, but my fingers fumbled uselessly in the darkness. Panic welled up inside me, threatening to consume me. Then a small hand, pale and translucent, pressed against the frosted windowpane beside me. A single eye, glowing with an eerie light, peered through the frost, its gaze fixed on me. The whispers intensified, swirling around me, a chorus of pleas and threats, promises and despair. "Let us in, let us in, let us in!" Panic seized me, a primal scream trapped in my throat. I threw my weight against the cabin door, but it wouldn't budge. Frozen solid, or worse, held fast by something on the other side. The whispers intensified, laced with a chilling amusement, mocking my terror. A small skeletal hand, its fingers tipped with frost, slid across the windowpane, leaving a trail like melting ice. The single eye, burning with an unnatural light, followed my every move. They were toying with me, savoring my fear. I had to escape, now. But the only other exit was a small window at the back of the cabin, half buried in snowdrifts. It was a desperate gamble, but the only one I had left. Grabbing my backpack, I stumbled towards the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. The whispers followed me, a chorus of icy voices urging me on, their tone laced with a terrifying anticipation. "Come out! Come out!" they hissed. "We won't hurt you." Much. I threw open the window, a blast of frigid air stinging my face. The storm had reached its peak, the wind howling like a banshee, the snow falling in thick sheets that obscured all vision. I didn't hesitate. Taking a deep breath, I plunged into the white abyss. The icy wind ripped at my clothes, the snow blinding me as I stumbled through the drifts. I could hear the whispers behind me, faint but persistent, like the baying of hounds on my trail. They were coming for me. I didn't dare slow down, not even to catch my breath. The cold was seeping into my bones, but I knew that stopping, even for a moment, could be fatal. I had to keep moving, to put as much distance between me and that cursed cabin as possible. The memory of the single eye peering through the frosted window, the skeletal hand reaching for me, fueled my flight. These were not creatures of warmth and light. They belonged to the storm, to the icy darkness that had claimed this corner of the world, and I was their prey. Time lost all meaning as I stumbled through the white wilderness. The storm showed no signs of abating, the wind and snow creating a disorienting labyrinth that offered no escape. My legs screamed for rest. My lungs burned with each frigid breath. But I pushed on, driven by a primal need to survive. Just when I thought I could go no further, that the cold would claim me as surely as the creatures in the cabin, I saw it. A faint light, flickering in the distance. Hope, fragile but insistent, surged through me. I stumbled towards the light, my vision blurring at the edges. As I drew closer, I could make out the shape of a building, small and squat, half buried in the snow. A hunting lodge, perhaps, abandoned for the winter. Salvation, or so I thought. The door creaked open as I approached, revealing a single room, sparsely furnished but blessedly warm. A fire roared in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn log walls. A kerosene lamp flickered on a table, casting a pool of warm light that seemed to push back the encroaching darkness. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me, the sound a reassuring thud against the howling wind. I had found shelter, at least for the night. But as I turned to survey my surroundings, a chill ran down my spine. The room was not empty. Seated around the table, bathed in the flickering lamplight, were 3 figures. They wore heavy winter clothing, their faces obscured by shadows. They didn't speak, didn't move. They simply sat there, their gazes fixed on me with an unnerving intensity. I stood frozen in place, my backpack slipping from my grasp. The silence in the room was heavy, oppressive, broken only by the crackling fire and the pounding of my own heart. Who were these people? And what were they doing out here in the middle of nowhere in the heart of a blizzard? Well, one of the figures finally spoke, his voice a low growl that seemed to reverberate through the room. "Looks like we have a guest." I took a step back, my hand instinctively reaching for the door behind me, but it was too late. One of the figures, a woman with eyes as cold and unforgiving as the blizzard outside, rose to her feet, blocking my exit. "Don't be afraid," she said, a humorless smile playing on her lips. "We've been expecting you." The trap had been sprung, and I was caught in its icy grip. A shiver ran down my spine, a primal fear seizing my throat. The woman's words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken menace. Her companions, still shrouded in shadow, watched me with an unnerving intensity. They hadn't moved, yet their presence felt like a physical weight pressing down on me, stealing the air from my lungs. "Expecting me?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper, "but how?" The woman chuckled, a dry, brittle sound that sent chills down my spine. "The storm brought you to us," she said, her voice raspy as if unused for years, "just as it brought us what we needed." She gestured towards the table, where a crude map lay spread out, marked with strange symbols and lines. My gaze darted to the map, then back to the 3 figures. They were hunters, I realized, but not of the kind I had ever encountered before. "We've been tracking it for weeks," the man who had spoken earlier said, his voice deep and guttural. "The beast. It's been leaving a trail of bodies in its wake. Families, children, no one is safe." He looked at me then, his eyes boring into mine. "We need your help to stop it," he said, holding my gaze. Confusion warred with terror inside me. These people, these hunters, were enlisting my help? But why me? What could I possibly offer in the face of such ancient primal evil? I don't understand," I stammered, my voice shaking. "What makes you think I can help?" The woman leaned forward, her sharp features illuminated by the flickering lamplight. "The storm chose you," she said, her voice low and intense. "It brought you to this place, to this moment. You are connected to it, to the beast, whether you realize it or not." She pointed to the map. "The symbols, they speak of a convergence, a thinning of the veil between worlds. The beast is using this to its advantage, crossing over, feeding on fear and despair." Her words washed over me, a torrent of unsettling truths and terrifying possibilities. I had stumbled into something ancient, something far greater and more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. "We can't fight it alone." The other hunter, a younger man with haunted eyes, spoke for the first time. "But together, we might stand a chance." The weight of their words, the gravity of their request, settled on me. Fear still coiled in my gut, but it was tempered now by a strange sense of purpose. I had stumbled into a nightmare, yes, but perhaps, just perhaps, I could play a part in ending it. The hunters explained their plan, a desperate gamble that involved ancient rituals and forgotten lore. They spoke of sacrifices, of drawing the beast's power, of using its own strength against it. It was a dangerous, even suicidal plan, But as I looked into their eyes, saw the grim determination etched on their faces, I knew it was our only hope. As the night wore on, the storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil within me. Fear warred with a strange sense of acceptance, a letting go of everything I thought I knew about the world. The hunters, these hardened veterans of a war against the unseen, became my guides, my companions in this descent into darkness. We performed the rituals, our voices blending with the howling wind. We offered sacrifices, the air thick with the scent of blood and fear. And as the night reached its zenith, as the storm reached its peak, we felt a shift in the air, a thickening of the shadows, a presence that sent shivers down our spines. The beast was near. The hunters exchanged grim glances, their hands tightening on their weapons. I stood with them, my heart pounding against my ribs, my breath catching in my throat. Fear was a living thing now, coursing through my veins, but I fought to keep it at bay. This was it, the moment of truth. The cabin door burst open with a deafening crack, a blast of icy wind and swirling snow engulfing us. I braced myself, my gaze darting to the doorway, expecting to see, what? A monstrous form? A creature of teeth and claws? But the doorway remained empty. The storm raged, but there was no sign of the beast. And then, I heard it. A whisper, soft and low, carried on the wind. It wasn't coming from the doorway though, it came from behind me, from the depths of the cabin itself. "Thank you," the whisper said, laced with a chilling amusement. "You've led me to exactly what I needed." I turned, my blood freezing in my veins. The cabin was empty, the hunters, they were gone. Vanished. And then I understood. The trap hadn't been meant for the beast. It had been meant for me, for us. The beast had been playing us all along. As the realization dawned, a wave of icy terror washed over me, threatening to consume me. I had one last fleeting glimpse of the hunters' faces, their eyes wide with betrayal and fear, before the storm swallowed them whole. Then, I was alone. The last thing I remember before the darkness claimed me was the sound of laughter. Cold, cruel laughter echoing through the empty cabin, carried on the icy breath of the storm. They found me days later, half buried in the snow, babbling incoherently. They said I was lucky to be alive, that the storm had been the worst in living memory. But the storm that raged inside me, the echoes of those chilling encounters, that was a storm that would never truly abate. I tried to tell them what I had seen, what I had learned, but the words felt hollow, meaningless in the face of such ancient primal terror. They dismissed it as shock, as the ravings of a man pushed to the edge and beyond. They were right, of course. How could anyone, even those who had lived their entire lives in the shadow of the mountains, comprehend the true depths of the darkness that lurked within the heart of winter? I left the mountains behind, but the mountains never truly left me. The icy grip of winter followed me home, a constant companion in my dreams, a haunting reminder of the secrets I had uncovered, the truths I could never reveal. The world seemed different now, colder, harsher. The line between reality and nightmare blurred beyond recognition. I see them sometimes, in the corner of my eye, in the reflection of a window pane, the hunters. Their faces are etched with fear, their eyes pleading for a release that never came. They are bound to the storm, to the entity they sought to destroy. Their sacrifice a testament to the price of hubris, of meddling in forces beyond our understanding. And the whispers? They never truly ceased. They are there in the silence between heartbeats, in the rustling of leaves on a cold winter's night, a constant reminder of the pact made, the debt that can never be repaid. They are the voices of the storm, the echoes of those lost to its icy embrace, a chilling chorus that follows me wherever I go. I know now that some truths are best left buried, that some doors should never be opened. The wilderness holds secrets, ancient and powerful, and those who dare to seek them out do so at their peril. For in the heart of winter's embrace, where shadows dance and whispers beckon, there lies a darkness that consumes all who dare to venture too close. And the storm? It waits. Patient, relentless, its icy breath forever whispering my name.